box are off. Okay.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Thank you all for being here. Our board has adopted policy and procedure 1400, meeting conduct, order of business, and form, which are available on the district website. Policy ensures that all meetings are conducted in a civil, orderly, and business-like manner. Whether you're a board member, staff, students, or guests, we all follow the same standards of civility during meetings. Starting July 1st, 2024, all regular board meetings are audio and video recorded and available on the district website. By RCW 4230.7. These recordings, which include board comments and public testimony, will be kept for at least 1 year. Public comment is required at regular board meetings for the final action. We value public participation, and each regular board meeting includes a public comment period as required by the Open Public Meetings Act. Comments can be made verbally or in writing. Written comments must be submitted at least 24 hours before the meeting and must follow the board standards of civility. Public comment is limited to 30 minutes with each speaker allotted 3 minutes. You cannot donate time to other speakers or speak more than once per meeting, even if time remains. This is for the board to listen, not to engage in dialogue. The board will not respond to comments, questions, or challenges during the comment period, and silence should not be interpreted as agreement or disagreement. However, the board chair may ask for clarifications, and district staff may follow up with individuals after the meeting. Please be mindful of the impact of your words. Each speaker is responsible for their own statements, not the district. Certain remarks could violate privacy laws or be considered defamatory. If you are unsure of the legal implications of your comments, we recommend seeking legal advice. In closing, we ask that everyone help us model for our students what respectful and inclusive community looks and sounds like. Thank you for being here. And the purpose of this meeting is for our public hearing on 2025.
So we have Kara is here from the Northwest ESD, who will be our new business manager. So Kara Moore and Angie
Moser.
and Angie Moser, who will be here starting next month. Is that right? Possibly.
We have yet to determine exactly
Okay.
who, but we'll make sure.
Okay. And then we have Lisa Matthews from the ESD here as well, whom we've met before. But Kara will be presenting, right?
Yes.
On the budget hearing. So, the floor is yours.
I have some notes to the slides available to you. I'll take there's great. Just enough. So our budget timeline, we are having the budget public hearing here tonight at 5:30, and then the adoption will be during the regular meeting at 6 o'clock. Tonight we're going to go over the general fund revenues, expenditures, and the other funds as well at the end. And it does say questions. There's a slide for questions at the end, but I do encourage the board to be like being interrupted and ask me your questions so you don't forget. You don't have to forget. So we're going to start with local revenues. Local revenues driven by the enrollment. The local levy, donations, fees, and things like local fees, things like that. So we have a picture on the screen. Each of the slides is the same sort of layout, but I just thought the first one will take you through what the columns mean. The 23-24A is the actual data from the most recently closed year. So 23-24 is a school year that's all the way close to finished. So that's actual revenue data. 24-25 B is for budget. So that's the budget that you guys adopted last summer. 25 year, and then 25-26 P is the projected. That's the budget that is being presented to the board tonight for adoption. So in local property tax, we don't budget to collect 100% of the local budget, 0.62%. So slightly less to account for variations in receipts from the county treasurer. We have budgeted a slight decrease in food service, offsetting increase in state revenue, in food service, which is on the next slide. So we kind of shifted some of that from local receipts to state. In gifts and donations, we have reduced some of that based on actuals that we, and then in other local support, that does include a budgeted amount of about interest earnings. So, in the local property tax is the levy. For the general
Okay, sure.
fund, it's the enrichment levy or EP&O levy.
Can you explain the levy cap?
Yes, I can. So the levy cap, I put the current data here in the header for you. The levy is allowed to be collected up to the voter approved amount and never more than what is voter approved. And it is capped below that amount if your per pupil amount is lower than what's voted. And the way they figure that out is they give us an amount for 2026. I also put the 2025 amount on here so you can see. But that's the amount per pupil that when you take your final enrollment in the entire year and multiply that by that amount, that is the levy limit. So if that amount is less than your voter approved, then that's. And then the other cap that they have is, and they is legislation, sorry, $2.50 per thousand. The rate of the levy is on the 2.5 per thousand.
So, and we have the data from all previous years, so even though voters have approved the maximum for the many umpteen past EP&O levies, we only are able to collect like $1.43, $1.47, even though voters have $2.50.
And a more prosperous community can get a higher.
Like Bellevue School District can still only go to 250.
Okay.
That's correct. The only one that I'm aware of that's an exception is Seattle Public Schools, and they have a cap of a per pupil amount. But nobody in this region. Then we have state revenue, and that is from revenue that's driven by enrollment, predominantly it's driven by enrollment. So we have a picture of your enrollment. This slide has a little bit of an extra bonus because the 24-25 year. So we have 23-24 actual enrollment, then what was budgeted for the year that February 24-25, then how it came in as actuals, and then our projected enrollment. So we're projecting a slight enrollment decline and a slight special.
That's the average, right? 467 was the average.
Yes,
Because we
it is
ended
the
at
annual
440
average.
or something.
Yes, it's the annual average. Okay, so when we take this enrollment and we put it through the revenue estimator, then it tells us what the apportionment and state funding is generated by that enrollment. And so that's on this slide. The budget drivers for state revenues, IPD, that's the implicit price deflator, and that's the inflationary factor that OSBI uses to apply it to the salary amounts that they say for a certificate in a classified care designated amount. There's additional funding factors applied in your district. Your regionalization is set at 6%. Program. It's a state categorical program, and it is funded on percentage from your free and reduced lunch or special education threshold of the legislation. It lifted funding, and so that is also applied. And then finally, transportation ridership does affect your transportation revenue. So for this budget, we do see some basic education decreases. That's just because the enrollment decreased compared to budget. Special education, though, did increase due to the threshold being lifted. And then there's also transitional bilingual. That's another program. And that is funded based on enrollment reported in this budget. We did not put any revenue in here for safety net. That is because if there is safety net money, a lot of factors, not just enrollment, there's a lot of technicality and things. So we don't budget for it because of the uncertainty of how much we're going to get. Getting that revenue if there's any individuals. And then the other state funding, that's the last section on this slide, that includes state forest revenue. We budgeted $15,000 for that. Capable, that's a categorical program that is budgeted based on enrollment. Food service, $98,000 in it's very small savings. Okay, then federal revenues, they're dependent on the applications and the grants that are awarded, and the count of student meals served. So food service is based on your meal count. In this district, there are some slight increases to special education funding for the federal portion. The Title I and Title II programs are reduced. Federal funding going on right now. So if they do fully fund those, then that will be this federal section did get reduced as well. State. And then the other federal funding, the majority of that is the REAP grant, and that is the Rural Education Achievement Grant. Then capacity is listed on the slide on the revenue side. Where it is with budgeted capacity. So I can explain that if you'd like. Yes. Okay. So capacity is a number that is added to the revenue side, and the same number is added to the expense side. And that causes no net increase or decrease to the overall fund balance or the net budget. It's a completely net zero amount. But it allows us to put in some expenditures with the offsetting revenues. Your total appropriation at the bottom line of the budget. So as you may be aware, you can never spend more than what the appropriation amount is. That you maybe have some, but you can never go above that bottom line. Putting a capacity in there allows us to have the capacity to spend if we don't anticipate, or any sort of donations or any type of revenue that a lot of it is not in here. If we don't have capacity, then we can't spend. So there is a mechanism for getting that appropriation amount, but that includes doing this whole. So
So if you get added revenues, does it come off of that?
no, the law says that we cannot spend more than that total expenditure. We can bring in as much as you have. Without having any impact, but it's the expense. So it's shown here to make sure that it nets zero to the expense. Have it called out in a future slide. So, all right. So, any other questions about revenues? We're kind of moving into expenses now. Expenses are basically.
Excuse me.
Yes, go ahead.
The state forest revenues, we used to get significantly more than 50,000. Is that not going to change?
It's very fluid and it's hard to predict. You could budget for 15,000 like we have and receive 100,000, and we don't have any way to know.
But you and ESD haven't done anything about the change in that.
Heard any changes? I know that there was some robust funding in prior years and it dried up.
That's right.
Yeah. You're welcome. Okay, so expenses, we broadly categorize them in labor and non-labor costs. Labor costs is the majority of the budget because we're service oriented. We are, so really the non-labor costs is, that is the overhead piece, but primarily we're employing teachers and staff. Staffing levels will drive the cost for labor. Benefit rates will also drive costs, and then any collective bargaining agreement. So the budgeted FTE for your employees is shown on the screen. We have them just broadly organized into administration, instructional, and classified. We show a slight reduction in staffing due to retirement. And also in the classified area, we have some business office. A personal services contract. First side, the employee side, to so that is kind of driving what you see with reduction in FTE here. When we translate that staffing, the staffing levels, all of the benefits, and that results in the following labor costs for certificated staff. That does include administration. So we have it broken out in the FTE slide, but it's really lumped in together and certificated. And then classified staff, and then for both categories, the taxes and benefits. So we do see a reduction in costs. Again, that's due to the reduction in FTE. And we did see a savings in retirement rates. So I do want to make the point that was pretty impactful. It's about $1,500 a year in extra medical costs. And so non-labor costs. In general, this research and control 5 to 7% of the actual. So for supplies and materials, we did budget a slight. That is the tangible goods. Services, this is where we see kind of a larger increase, and that's where insurance increases, utilities are slightly better, and any other contracts. This also is capturing anything that is coded to the surface. For travel, we did increase the travel slightly from more to align with the actuals from the prior year. That's the expense capacity that we're really interested in capturing and make sure that we're has enough time to spend money. And for capital outlay, but we do have
levy that we passed, so which is the safety and security.
it would come out of the capital projects fund.
This is general.
Yes. So this would be something that's not for the capital projects fund, like the motor pool. And it could be technology related, if it were not to be applied to that, safety and security levy. Yeah, anything that's gonna be. That was the non-labor read, or fashionably called MSOS. You may have heard the term. So when we bring everything together into the summary, that's kind of this slide has a lot of numbers on it, but basically we're taking all of our resources and we're stacking. There's another category right here that we don't have a slide for. Governments or other school districts. So that's the revenue from grants. So that's what that 155,000 is. So revenue comes up to 12,337,490. And as you can see on the plot, the some fund balance intentionally and spending that down. It can be an intentional buildup where the budget is positive, that in the actuals for any reason, where we added to the fund balance by that. The break even, which is much harder to accomplish because it's not always realistic to have your revenue. So in the fund balance, capacity of 400,000. It's not shown here, it's embedded inside the totals, but this 12,714,049 has 400,000 of capacity in here. It's not does.
So it means we're not necessarily going to spend that 400,000, so we might not actually. need to fund it.
Correct. Okay. We would spend it if we have revenues that came in that were new, that types of revenues that things that allows us to spend it without having to process and legal budget extension.
I think what she's asking is, the net difference doesn't matter if we have that 400,000 offset, we're still anticipating dipping into the general fund 376,000.
Yes, because there's a revenue side too, so it's net zero.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. So we wouldn't spend the money unless we got the revenue for it, but this budget doesn't, it's a net zero for that, so it's like capacity isn't in there.
So we really
Yes.
are spending down
Yes.
376,000.
Okay, so compared to last year, where the board adopted a budget that was spending down very, very much trying and trying to, fine tune and be as realistic as possible. All of that net budget transfers over to and that when you apply that net budget amount of about negative 376,000, that brings the 1,118,446. That leaves you with 482,000 above your minimum. So are maintained. About 8.8%.
It happens.
Questions before we move to the other funds? Minutes. The legislation requires us to put this in the, and so this is your implies operating costs. The state is funding 754 green equipment. And we are budgeting to spend a little more than that. Yes. So the difference is 2.8657. If it were the other way around, you'd have to explain how you're taking MZOG money and spending it on kids. You're underfunded in SOX. The 4-year forecast is provided for you. It is hard to get that much data 4 years in a row on a slide like this, but essentially we're taking in this assumption, we're just rolling forward your student count. Realistic, but we don't. This shows an increasing enrollment because as your classes roll out, placing them at 38 kids each year in year. In this scenario, we are leaving staffing. much staffing, we have to keep it small. So your revenues are showing growth over time. Your 32% increase in all categories. And your excess of budget, revenue minus expenses, it's budget the first 2 years and then starts to grow. That is if you get 38 kindergartners every year for the next 3 years and you don't increase staff. Show you what the picture will look like. So if that were to happen, then your fund balance will continue to grow out on your. So your other funds, the other funds that we're budgeting, the capital projects. And so that is in the local taxes amount. It is slightly less than what the board has approved because we don't budget 100%. The other revenues and the includes a $4 million capacity grant. So $4 million in so that you have the capacity to spend on projects. Showing a net difference of a deficit amount. Carry over from prior years. So the ending fund balance is 1.19. Revenues, but we tend to increase the expenses there so that students can spend the money that's in them. Activities, we really want to budget a lot of expenses if they run fundraisers. And we are show spend down at some balance. And in the transportation vehicle fund, we do the same thing. Not one or two buses, in case the board needs to fund. Needs to keep a balance of. They matter too, but they're just not. Guys, I went a little bit over, but I tried. I know I talked pretty fast, but